Hi guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being the few, the brave crowd to be here in person. At the same time, we're recording and we're live on Zoom and we're recording into the cloud. So you know how I love putting things that I say into the cloud, so I can be arrested later. I'm Ken Jones. I'm famous for directing shows that get canceled, and so thank you for being here today. And this is the first of our guest artist series. So we will actually be having guest artists every week, every Friday, at the same time at 1, in person, and that goes into mid-November. And I'll announce those guest artists as they come along. So we are thrilled to have today our first guest artist, both alums from Northern Kentucky University, Pat Moser and Jacob Priddy. And so they're both representing two different areas of theater. Pat graduated with a BFA in musical theater, and Jacob graduated with 2 degrees, a theater degree and a music degree in music as well. So Jacob is representing actor, musical direction, composition, as well as that, and of course his notorious acting career while he's here. Pat is representing comedy. She is also on the improv team and representing comedy, acting, and musical theater. So I will ask questions and we'll get them started, and then we'll open up for questions from our live folks. Michael Hatton is behind me, and we'll take chat questions. And we'll make it why don't you start us off with how you went from here?
Yeah.
What was the next step after you graduated from NKU for both?
Well, I still had a lot of fear when I left here. I got a lot of really good tools and everything, and really kind of was figuring out who I was type-wise, but it's just, your type is so different in school, and then you go out to the real world, and you're like, I am not that person. So I knew, I was like, I just want some more training. And we had talked for weeks, like, where to go, what to do, whether it's in New York, LA, or grad school. I remember I was sitting in your office and you were like, well, go to LA. I just imagine you looking down a alleyway and there's a shoe store at the end of it and it's really bright and sunny and all of a sudden you get love. So I was like, great, I won't go to LA right now.
That's my helpful tip for LA.
Good. I got that. And then New York, I always knew I wanted to live there, go there, but I just wanted more training. So I was like, well, I'll just apply and audition to grad schools. I probably won't get in, but we'll see what happens. And if I don't get in, I will just move to New York. But I got into a couple grad schools actually, and so I got to choose. I chose one that was the nearest to the beach, and also SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, in particular, focused a lot on film and television acting. And I really wanted to get into that. I kind of got a taste in Divine Will and got that little bug. And so I wanted
Which is a film we shot in Northern Kentucky.
Yes.
And also, you wanted to go there because they also had comedy improv.
Yes.
Both Pat and Jacob were on the improv team. So are you improv team members? Great. That's when Charlie Reddy was a wee type and I was running. But they were both, their specialty, both of them, was to create music, which I know you guys do too, create songs. Jacob could take on the piano any genre we could give him and create a song, and Pat could sing anything from anything. And it's still one of your specialties.
Yeah, it's our party kit, for sure.
Yeah.
We go to parties and bring that up. But we've actually thought about building a show off it too, because we still have yet to see someone do that. Yeah.
All right. So you go to Savannah College of Art and Design.
Yeah, I go to Savannah College of Art and Design. It was a 2-year program. I trained, still continuing in musical theater and in improv. We actually had a UCB that their David store, the UCB, got me on an improv team, trained there. And then I took a lot of film and television classes, learned how to be smaller because musical theater is all big. I did a lot of student films and built my reel off of that, which proved to be so important alone, just to have a reel starting off when you go off into the world. So I did that, and then SCAD also provided a few theaters to come in and audition for us, as well as casting directors, and they did have a showcase. And the theaters were among them Louisville, Actors Theater of Louisville, and Milwaukee Repertory Theater. So I auditioned for them and got into their apprentice program. So that's where I went to next. So I still hadn't gone to New York yet, but I was building all these things I didn't realize I needed until now.
And then she went to New York,
Conquered
conquered the city, and became an off-Broadway actress, working for over a year in your off-Broadway show.
Yes.
That's the way I remember. There was nothing in between that. You did your apprentice program, you went to New York, and you killed the city. They gave you the key, and you were an off-Broadway actress.
Sure.
That's what I remember. Now, that's her story.
I remember like rats falling on my feet. Like,
Okay. Maybe a tear or two. Yeah.
Maybe a few tears, maybe a little bit of like, I'm moving back home. But you keep auditioning, you keep doing it. And I saw The Office, the musical parody, and I auditioned for that 3 times. And every time I auditioned for Michael Scott. And so one day, the 3rd time, I came in and I auditioned for Michael Scott, and then they were like, will you read for Kevin Malone? Which, I don't know if you all know The Office, that's the big silly guy. I was like, absolutely. And because of my improv training, and especially what Ken talks about physicality, which throwing off their improv in New York, there's a lot of people who really lack physicality. It's all like talking heads. So just alone, that was what helped me get the part for that. And it was actually, I was auditioning for the tour. And they had called me right when I left, like maybe an hour ago, and they're like, do you want to come and do Off-Broadway? And I was like, absolutely. And the fun part was that I had just booked another job probably a week before that. So I was going from like 2 years of absolutely nothing to now I had to choose between 3 different jobs to go to. So I knew I wanted to do that one, and the other one would hopefully come later.
And the only reason you're not doing it is because of COVID. So in a lot of the questions we'll talk about today and we'll ask from you, they'll give you a post-COVID answer and a pre-COVID answer. And what we hope you will go back to when you graduate. So she kills New York. She eats rats and then gets an off-Broadway show. And then Jacob, yes, you leave NKU with 2 degrees. And then what do you do?
So I actually, upon graduating, I was, playing for the summer dinner theater here, and then had kind of booked like a trail of shows here in the Cincinnati area. Ended up working at Playhouse in the Park, doing the production in the park, working on that, and then kind of just followed this string of, working on this show, building up some credits as like a music director in this area. And then I ended up moving up to New York in the fall of 2016. I have some family up there, so they were gracious enough to let me kind of rent out their basement. So I lived out of their basement just so that way I could kind of get a feel for the city, so I wasn't tied down to a week or anything, kind of seeing where I wanted to live. And during that time, did the classic networking of printing out some business cards, going to people's cabaret, introducing myself to like different things that I could, without not going up to people after shows, it was just like, talking to them casually. And then would bounce back to Cincinnati. Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
Over at Cincinnati Children's Theater, and then decided to just bite the bullet and make the full move and just commit up there in summer 2017. And then stayed up there since then. And then from meeting people up in New York, it kind of, it truly is about networking. A friend of mine, actually, I went through a little, beginning of 2018, did a bunch of gigs for 2017, ended up going on tour with a Christmas Story national tour. And then when I was coming back in 2018 to New York, I had a little kind of dry spell where it was like, oh, I don't know, things kind of falling through. And I was just about to send in my application to like work on cruise ships as a musician, like playing for them, when a friend of mine called me up and was like, hey, they actually need vocal directors. So I ended up going down to Miami and then started working with Celebrity Cruise Line as a vocal director for them. So between that and then the national tour, the holiday show, my little 3.5 month chunk of the year, which is great, little temporary gig. And then working at some summer shops up at like here by the sea and onshore music there. Yes, like on Quick Playhouse. Yes, kind of piecing together little things and building the network, kind of spiraling from there.
And eating rats.
And eating rats, yes. Right. That is a delicacy. I never did.
He never did. He never did. He just immediately conquered the national tours and cruise line industry out of here. And I have to throw in this because you're fairly humble about this. It's not only was he an amazing musician when he came here already in NKU, but he's a hilarious actor, and I think that also helps with those of you who want to be musical directors or have those musical skills. That was always kind of a secret in your back pocket that you were a musician when you were here, because you really kind of started out as an actor. And then when you threw that musician card down, it kind of blew our minds. Kat, we always knew she could sing because she transferred here from. Let's talk about that, Kat. Let's talk about when you came here. This is a good story.
Okay. So I was kind of like a brat when I left high school. Because, when you're in high school, you're like, I'm going to be on Broadway. And immediately you want to, go to the certain programs that will get you a ticket to Broadway. And my parents were so supportive, but they never really told me like what I actually could do as far as going to a certain school. And so NKU was actually my first school I visited. And I was sitting in Kim Jong's office with my mother, like this. Like the rudest kid ever. And my mom was the one sitting there talking for me. I was just like, I'm going to have an idea of all stuff. And which were very great schools, mind you. But and so then when I realized that because I was responsible for my own college payment, that I could not afford those schools. It came down to the wire where I had already passed on NKU and I missed the deadline of my governor's school for the arts scholarship and everything. And also Jacob was going to NKU, and at the time I was like, we weren't together, and I'm like, I don't want to go with you for. So again, a brat. And so I went to WKU because they said that it was a good career school, and it just wasn't for me. And I knew that in the first semester, and I was like, I have to get out of here. Again, go to school. And so I had to prove to my parents and prove to myself that I could figure out how to transfer. And I came into Ken Jones' office by myself this time, sitting like this, full up, and just explaining my situation and pretty much just begging me to come.
And hoping that I didn't remember her.
I hope.
From a year before.
So bad.
But I did. It's like the prodigal son, though. It's a good parable. My love and warming heart. I welcomed her into our
yeah.
And actually, I think we gave you a scholarship.
Yeah, that was really sad too. Because I was sitting out in the pond area, and I was like crying. I want them to know to go here. And Ken just comes running out with this. And goes, you got it.
The rest is magic. Here we are, Off-Broadway, conqueror of Off-Broadway. Now, let's open it for some questions. Another thing I to tell you that they also started their own business in New York. Besides becoming a lovely couple while they were here, they carried that through to New York. And they opened up a business where you do what?
We do a self-paced business and also coaching business, whether it be both coaching and acting coaching. But self-paced before COVID were starting to get more needed, and there were so many companies that were like, "We're going to charge you $60 self-paced," and we're like, "That's ridiculous." So we were like, we both have our own jobs that we can support ourselves that way. Let's start to build it. So we were doing a 30-minute increment of last-minute self-paced if anybody needed it for film and television, because I have casting experience as well from SCAD. I worked in our casting office, and I interned at CBS. So I had that experience, and we also knew what musical theater self-paced requires. So we really wanted to make it affordable for actors and artists like us to be able to come last minute, get their self-paced in, and we send them to them the next day. And really liked that and wanted to make it more profitable. We just had roommates. So next time when we go up, we'll have a studio and
Yeah, but it was just a nice experience that we tried to take our skills that we had and try to help other artists. Find that a lot, especially up in New York, that there's a really sometimes it can seem very, very a lot of people are always there to help support the for each other.
the people that are cutthroat, they leave very soon.
Okay.
They don't last. It's always the kind people that stay and an easy time for each other. Yeah.
Good. Question? Yes.
Hi.
So in terms of like personal preference, where is the best place to live in New York City, and what advice do you have for someone who has only lived in Richmond?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you've got to visit first.
Yeah.
Don't just pack up a car and go, or a truck and go. You've got to visit. You've got to figure out. But one really cool thing in grad school, I had professors who made us make a binder entirely of sections of neighborhoods or boroughs that we were interested in living in. Picking out an apartment budgeting too. Picking out an apartment from little things and just seeing what was around you, what was around that area. Budgeting for the subway system, knowing which system you want to take. Something like that, I really highly suggest doing that. But as far as boroughs go and where you want to live, it is sincerely how you feel, because there are Brooklyn people, and Brooklyn people are so cool, and we're not Brooklyn people. Like, Brooklyn is a really great place. It takes a little longer to get into the city, depending on where you are. But it's all, we're all the history, so there's all the cool restaurants and everything like that. Queens is also a really great place because a lot of families live there, and that's usually where people will go after a while when they've lived in New York for a while. And it's just a little bit of a separation from the city. We were really interested in it for a while. I would say that Washington Heights, personally, Washington Heights and England is a great place to start as an actor, because it's right still in the city, still on the island, and you just take. I think there's like 3 train options that you've got, and it's just up and down, and it's easy, so simple. And again, it's filled with families, and a lot of actors and artists live in those areas as well. And I also personally like it because it's got that Hudson River right there, so I just feel like I get to separate a little more.
And the heights include Washington Heights, Hamilton Heights, Hudson Heights, and she said Inwood, which is at the very top of Manhattan. And then Harlem, probably.
Yeah. Harlem's a good place
Yeah,
too.
at the bottom of the heights is probably where you might start.
Yeah.
Yes. Looking for places, big shot.
I was told when I first went up there that East Harlem maybe avoid, but I think it should be fine. Again, that's why you want to visit. If You want to walk around, see what your comfort level is. I didn't mention the stuff like in Midtown or Soho or or anything, but those are pricey and really expensive. Upper West Side is renting, but we can actually afford it right now, post-COVID, because things dropped. But Upper West Side and East Side are very fancy. You can look, depending on your budget.
I think the key is just to go up there and visit. For us, it was looking at the island that had, if there's inclement weather, sometimes the trains don't run over the bridge. So that's why we were like, oh, maybe we'll avoid 24. But also, it's a great idea to try to find a sublet rather than necessarily signing down on the lease. Friends of ours that like when we go to the city, I told them I'd be like, hey, try to find like a 3 to 6 month sublet that you can sign on first, so that you're not tied down for a whole year.
Good question. Another question? Yes.
So hi, I'm Field, and also from someone who has dreams of being on SNL and Broadway, where would be like the best way to start?
Okay, so SNL is really interesting. It's a whole different world. That is the sketch comedy improv world. It's almost entirely different from musical theater. And I dip my toe in that because I'm in a main sketch comedy team at the pit. And it's definitely, you just want to, first step is to get yourself into, there were three improv studios that included UCB, the pit, and the Magnet. However, UCB has gone out of business in New York. They're still in LA, but they've gone out of business here. Then, that's just in New York City alone. Then you've got Chicago, which has Second City, IO, a plethora of
Improv Olympics.
Yeah.
Upright Citizens Brigade.
Mm-hmm. And then in LA, UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade, is still there, and the Groundlings. I really, really want to go to one day and study there because that's where like Will Ferrell and Melissa McCarthy and all that. So that's really your first step. Getting in there, introducing yourself to people, and then the next step is making your own work. Like making a web series, a sketch comedy show, stand-up comedy, getting yourself out there like that. Because there's really no audition for SNL. You have to be invited. And so just getting yourself out there and branding your own self. It's also weird too, because SNL, I've researched this hard. They don't really pick a lot of people from New York. They find their people from LA and Chicago.
Yeah.
They used to, they don't really not. So, and they find them people online too. Their own web series, even TikTok now. So.
Yeah, and I think you should also note that just like with her getting into Off-Broadway or getting into Broadway or anything that has to do with film, television, or theater, improv, there's a lot of politics. So it's not just that you could possibly be the funniest person in the world. It doesn't necessarily mean SNL is going to pick you. When you watch SNL, you'll know that's true. There's a lot of people on there who you're like, how did they get on there? And there's other people who are brilliant. There's still politics, and that's why getting into one of those groups helps you start to navigate and learn not only their style, but the politics.
Yeah, I'm still learning stuff. Festivals to enter in, competitions to enter in. They find people. You'll just learn as you go and talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I stand in a line at 5 a.m. for, cattle calls, and I have questions all the time. Like, how do you do this? How do you know this?
Yeah. And she's going to deny this, but she is truly one of the funniest improvers I've ever known. Yeah, she is.
I just love it.
Yeah, she really is. So she's a serious improver, comedian.
So we have a follow-up question with that is, you mentioned branding. So can you talk a little bit more about that, and how did you and Jacob approach the branding of your careers and your work?
Yeah. I mean, it is highly important because you are the CEO of your own company. So that would start first with knowing who you are. And the way to do that, know your type and what you do, is to try things. Like, I've never done sketch comedy before, but I went to an audition, I tried it, and I loved it. And also asking people questions. Like, again, my type is so different than here than out there. And also, the more auditions you go to, see what you're getting called back for and what you're not getting called back for. So I was starting to get called back for the funny best friends and the little side characters, the characters. So again, find that out, shape yourself. I would encourage a website because that is so easy to put everything you can on there. Headshots, personality pictures, a reel, any sketches that you do, I've got all of mine on there. Your resume, representation if you have it. Also an easy way to get representation to click in, they look at it all. And then now social media is very important. You don't have to have this perfect social media page, just have a presence. If you sing certain things, like if you sing a country opera and musical theater, have that somewhere. Have it on YouTube. Have it available on that Instagram Reels thing. I haven't figured that part out yet, but yeah, just put yourself out there. Also, a very good headshot resume.
I think it's important to look at what it is you want to do, and not that you have to kind of narrow your focus and only do that thing, but there's nothing wrong with focusing, saying like, okay, for these 6 months, I'm going to really focus on trying to improve sketch comedy, getting involved with those people, versus okay, for these 6 months, I'm now going to really work on my singing and maybe go the more classical legit route and try to go more get picked up with some golden age stuff. So I think it's a matter of not being afraid to let yourself focus. That's not meaning you're cutting yourself off from other opportunities. By all means, still keep your eyes open for those, but at the same time, being willing to kind of like narrow in on, okay, I'm going to really hone in on this, and I think that kind of helps you shape your brand or help figure out what you are most successful with or most successful with.
And if there are any specific questions on like how to make a website or where to go for headshots, I mean, I've got a list of people I've known and met. Just do your research too. It's all your preference. See whose pictures you like, whose pictures you don't like. Yeah.
Okay, so you went to grad school. You did not go to grad school, so both are successful, but you need one. You don't necessarily need one or the other. But what is, right now I think students are really in a hard place because their undergraduate school has been, in a way, compromised, quite compromised. We're not doing full production. They're taking most of their classes online or hybrid classes. But what is the good? What was the good of getting a degree at NKU? What did that experience do for you? Did it help at all, or was it all your grad school and was it all your special experience?
Yeah, NKU did not at all.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, thank you, Kathy. Yeah, now look, he's out of it.
No.
Yeah.
No, I think personally, if I look back on it, I hope it all the time on what should I have done this, should I have done that. The NKU is such a great place to explore all different venues. Like, I had no idea what improv was until we got to working on it. I was able to explore some shows with Jamie and be able to work on my belt and things like that. one time Michael Hatton and I, we went to, not to just any school, CCM's fantastic, but remember we went to CCM and went to that showcase, and everybody was the same person. It was a cookie cutter, and they had like grouped them in like types. And I was just sitting there like, this is scary. And I think that's the cool part about NKU is you're yourself, and you just work on your craft, not your type. You know what I mean? And also you're just able to be a human, and that's what they want, is just to be yourself. So like I was in a sorority, and I was able to have friends outside of theater, and that worked myself. We were in a fraternity, and we did that. We were also involved in the talk. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, definitely, exactly what Kat said. NKU, I think, really allowed me to kind of explore different facets of theater and what I wanted to the whole story of me was I actually started as youth ed. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a band choir teacher. And I still would love to teach choir and band and still kind of do a little bit. I didn't know that music direction was a thing until getting here and getting to work on the different shows. So it's really an opportunity to really explore. And one thing that Kat mentioned, being a human, that's one thing I need to reiterate again, because so many times where I've had the pleasure of being on the other side of the table, the captain table, or at the keys, you see a lot of people who just kind of come in and just do this saying, I'm told to stand here, I'm told to stand and do this. And then we don't get to see who they are, because even no matter who's performing Broadway, community theater, whatever, everyone is a human performing these roles and stuff. So that's really important, and I think that's something that is encouraged here. You all as students, you take that with you, that you are human performing these things, not just coming in and performing.
Also, I do want to say that it was really helpful because I could sorry about
Whoops. Wrong line set.
Now for the second act.
But we saw the same professors are pretty much here, which is that. And every single professor is so willing to, I think, have office hours with you. Go and ask them questions. I learned so much from each every one of them. Every time I had an audition, I would schedule an appointment and ask them for feedback. You don't get to do that in the real world. You don't get to ask your passion. So they get to do that for you. Take advantage of it. I think that people at NKU were definitely more approachable and had a variety of backgrounds too, as well. So
Yeah, and I think in your situation, because you're the pandemic generation, you're getting nervous about, am I going to go into the real world? One thing that I think also they can talk about is we're still here. You can still call us up and we'll still come see you and give you help or advice or comfort when you need it. So you will have that too. We don't graduate you and push you out the door and you're done with us. We hope we see you again. For example, I was teaching an institute over in Cincinnati for students, and I got to, Pat, we came to New York, took all the students to New York, and she was our tour guide.
I was like, let's go, come on.
Yeah, and showed us the entire city. We went to shows. We met up with Jacob. And we even saw her apartment so they could see what an apartment looks like in the Heights. So there's always this connection that we're still always going to be your family.
Yeah.
Because I know really right now you feel like you don't have them. But we still are. And any of you can talk to any of us about that.
Yeah, and the students are your family too. Like when we get back up, if any one of you, even if we don't know you, you want to be like, hey, we see your apartment, we'll schedule time and do it, And there are students still that I even go to school with at NKU that I reach out to and ask questions. Like Elizabeth Filan had gone to SCAD and reached out to her.
There's actually a very strong community of Northern Kentucky alumni in New York City.
And LA, too.
Yeah, and LA. And everyone, yes, and everyone's very willing to help each other. future up there.
Other questions for them about the business, their careers?
If you retire, I know Peter does not have that plan to retire, so what is your advice? That's your.
Well, I think I'm never retiring, but they can go ahead.
So, from a financial standpoint, I actually should have done this a while ago. I went ahead for myself. I haven't incorporated myself as like an LLC. That is something that you see it more on the musician side. Some people choose to do. Actors, not really, because they're and they have various plans. The one thing you can just do kind of on your own is open up like a Roth IRA, which is something that I do. You know, anytime I get some income from some job, I'll go and put some money aside for that. So that way, I don't see it and just magically think, oh, I can spend it. That's best advice I would offer for retirement at this juncture. If you want something to actually put aside.
Yeah, and that's an important thing. I think when he talked about an LLC, that's a limited liability corporation. You can open one in any state. In the state of Kentucky, I think it's only a couple $100 to open one. And then every year, I think you pay $100 or something to keep the tax liability. But that helps you, if you're going to be a corporation, that if let's say somebody wanted to sue you for something, like you did a show later on, they sue the company, not you. And the company probably at that time wouldn't have any money because it's a theater company. So they really can't do anything, but it protects you a little bit. But as far as saving money, because this is really important to me, sending people off to New York, if you put $5, a cup of coffee at Starbucks every day in a savings account for 20 years, you would have $1 million. That's how much it would grow. $5 every day for 20 years would be $1 million in 20 years by growth. So that's when he talks about a Roth IRA. He's talking about putting into something, money into something that then compounds its interest and keeps compounding over time, whether you're putting more money in or not. And every time you put more in, it grows more. So you, at your age, you're not thinking about this. It's an interesting question. It's hilarious that you asked that, because nobody ever does it. So I'm very proud of you. But nobody ever asks that, and sometimes you're not with a corporation that opens one for you. And when you're a private person just trying to live, putting a little bit aside, and then you wake up and you're ancient like me, you suddenly realize, hey, I have some money. And so that, you should start thinking about it now, because, what are you, 20 years old, 21, 22, 23, 24? 20 years from now, you're only going to be in your 40s. So if you save $5 a day, you be in your 40s and have $1 million. And that's with a low interest. That's with a bad economy. So anyway, he's smart to have that. Great question.
One thing I want to kind of chime in, it's a little sidetrack off of retirement, but in regards to like the union, because I mentioned actors equity a little bit, one thing that Pat definitely recommends people, and I 100% agree, if you ever get a job where they offer EMC points, go ahead and take those EMC points, because that allows you to still remain non-union, which is generally a good thing as it's starting out, because but then it also still gets you kind of in the door a little bit sooner. So the way that when you've got like union houses and stuff, we see the equity people first, then we see EMC people, and then we see content.
Can you explain to them the difference between being full equity and EMC candidates?
Yeah. So, he was talking about if you're going in for an equity audition, that, yes, they see equity members first, then EMC, then non-EMC. So equity is when you've have gotten all of your EMC points, which I'll get to that in a second, or you have been offered your equity points. And that means that you have become a part of the union, where you be paid the initial initiation fee, dues, and they are supposed to help you get a certain tier of pay for shows, as well as when you do book a show, you have health insurance. So, but you if you are equity, you can only do equity status shows, not do any non-union shows, no non-union boards, nothing like that. If you are EMC, you can do kind of both and still, so for instance, I'm still EMC, I got all of my points and I'm just sitting on them because I for preference and not ready to take my equity card because I still want to continue to get non-union work.
And you did Off-Broadway as an EMC candidate and not an equity applicant.
Yes, that was non-union stuff. And there are also a lot of non-union boards now that are turning that way. So anyways, it's your preference. But the EMC points is called Equity Membership Candidate points. And you can get them like me, where I did an internship at Milwaukee Rec Theater. You can get them by doing various shows. I think if you did the right fee, they give you some points. You know what part of your pay as well?
Yes, yeah, most, I can't speak for all, but at least like the various equity houses that I've worked at, for any non-union member, they will, in addition to pay, you can negotiate your contract to receive automatically, put you in the EMC category.
And the equity website has a list of theaters that offer EMC points. So I would highly suggest that when you graduate here, that should be your main goal. Yes, they have seeing what happens. If you can get 1 point, it will just make your life that much easier when it comes to audition.
But like along that line, if you're in New York for that means it's the
Before a big group of people have done. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really great. Now, post-COVID, don't know if any of that will change. But
Yeah, and right before COVID, equity changed their rules and took a whole bunch of people into the union and kind of flooded the market, kind of overwhelmed the market with too many equity people. So there was a backlash to having too many people who got equity at once. And that's right when you decided to hold off,
yeah,
which was smart, especially you didn't know this was going to happen. Then there's also AFTRA and SAG.
mm-hmm.
So AFTRA is really radio and television, and SAG is Screen Actors Guild. So that's another union if you go out to California, but you don't get the same point system. And equity and SAG have nothing to do with each other. SAG and AFTRA are one thing.
If you do have a SAG-AFTRA membership, or there are a few other unions, like the entertainment union, if you have that, you do get seen in auditions before equity, or before EMC. Fun fact.
In SAG, you basically have to get a SAG job to do SAG.
And then there's the AFN, the musicians union, you can just join that. Whatever you want. Just gotta plug them on.
Right, good for you. Good for you. Other questions for them?
You can find more about that on the equity website. It's got a whole lot of resources.
Can I ask you a very personal question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So I know you don't have your apartment or did you let your apartment go?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
Okay, and you had roommates, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell them, because I don't even think they have an idea of what the cost is. What was your rent? Your part of the rent, or per person, or together, or what in your apartment?
So, we, 4 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, cost us each $600.
that's including rent, fees, or
Yeah.
Did you feel like 4 people in a 2-bedroom apartment was a lot of people in a 2-bedroom apartment?
not really, because we were couples, so it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
And then, to also be honest, yes, my work kind of took me away a lot, so it's kind of like 3 people in a 2-bedroom apartment a lot of times. But you just, just know that that's kind of the cost of living.
So what happened with us was we actually had plans to move out of our apartment anyway in June to go to our summer stock shows
Yeah, we have work from June until November.
until November. So we were like, we're going to move back in November. So right now we're acting like this is our summer stock. So we had been talking about getting a one-bedroom apartment just with us. Our budget for a one-bedroom apartment, the highest we would be willing to go was $1,800 a month. And right? Is that right? And that was in Washington Heights, Eastwood. There are people that we know that will pay $900 to buy themselves for one bedroom apartment.
Depending on what part of the city. Although I just found one in Hell's Kitchen for $1,800 in one bedroom.
We'll say that
Because I'm always looking on there.
positive
It's really nice.
Currently is rent is dropping.
Yeah, rent's dropping tremendously.
You see it goes back up after.
Okay.
Yeah.
But,
But you know, and these two, I think, to speak to the COVID times, a lot of people who were perhaps in New York and were on that fence of, I grew up in a beautiful Kentucky, and now I'm living, you know, where you eat rat, baked rat, right? Some people are leaving the city. Some people, this has turned the tide on a lot of people's decision to either stick it out in LA, stick it out in Chicago, or stick it out in New York City. So there is still going to be a time where there's going to be more people leaving than coming back. And did you guys have a tough time with making your decision about going back and getting your one bedroom apartment?
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, it was.
I mean, we're still figuring things out day by day.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, you know, because we had agreed to give up our lease already, and sure, we could have continued to try to find another place, but just with kind of the uncertainty of what was going on, we made the decision for ourselves to just go ahead and put our stuff in storage and take a little hiatus, but we still obviously have plenty of things to take part. But we know a lot of friends who are still in the city. And just I want to reiterate this many times: New York is not like dead. Sometimes people say, "Oh, New York's dead." No, New York is not dead. There are lots of people up there who are still making wonderful things happen. A friend of mine has actually been coordinating these like pop-up little concerts in various locations throughout the city, and she's been doing some amazing things with that. So it's not dead by any means. Yes, our industry is a little stifled at the moment, but it will return. So it's just a matter for you of when you decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and make this leap and move up there, even if maybe the industry isn't back up yet, or however you want to go about that. So that's all personal.
And you're still auditioning. I mean, they're still having auditions in New York. Agents are still reaching out saying, can you film this? Can you film that? And television and film has actually done a better job than theater on how to figure out how to go back into production. So have you gotten auditions since you've been home?
Yes, some.
Yeah.
A lot of commercial auditions I've gotten more than musical theater. And then some from myself.
Yeah.
Other things for them.
We have a question about day jobs and finding a flexible day job to allow you to audition. Could you speak about that process of finding a day job and also too, as a kind of a second part to that, I'll add in another question with that. Is how you schedule your auditions and find them, where do they usually take place in the city, and what kind of time frame, how many auditions a week are you going to?
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer, do a day job that you are going to enjoy and be honest with yourself about it. I knew I could not wait tables. It was not me. I knew I couldn't do it. So that means that I would have to find more little day jobs here and there, because being able to make a lot of money. Yes. So I knew I couldn't do that. I got really lucky with the connections that I had with Haley, your daughter, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And she connected me with a company that is an online work from home based company that I still have, that works for a legal database sort of. So that's what I do. And I also really loved weddings and everything about weddings. And I got connected to another person at NKU, Ellen Connie, or Ellen Pop, and she connected me with Jenny Yu Collections, which is a wedding dress designer. And so I was a receptionist on the weekend for them. And so I just loved that job. And I also love teaching. And so I worked at the YMCA. I was a teacher for their art schools, as well as little things here and there. I applied for multiple jobs when I first got up there. It is okay to say no. I applied for this gymboree job, working with kids, and a lot of people do that and have success with kids. They had clowns everywhere. I hate clowns. I could not be in there every day. So, honest with yourself about that. Good to know. And I also couldn't watch people's kids. I tried that for a while, and that turned out to have some interesting stories.
There's some legalities to that, so we can't talk about.
Yeah, I think
for watching those kids, there's still some lawsuits.
So,
Yeah.
but all in all, going back to auditions, the majority of auditions will happen during the week. So you won't really see a lot on Saturdays and Sundays, and they happen in the morning. So I would highly, and this is for cattle, which means like big people come right at once at 5 a.m. and stay there until, usually it'll end around 4 o'clock. And if they're nice, they'll let you go if they're not going to be. Not if they're nice, but if they know, a lot of people keep people around in hopes that they'll see you, but I personally like them, they're like, go home, you're right. So there's that. And as far as me, I go to about 3 auditions a week. Then there's people like Haley who go to one every single day. and that's, again, your preference and knowing who you are. Haley is a dancer and perfect little person. And so she fits in like everything. She can go to every course and everything. I'm a little more specific. So I'm going to look on those websites, which I'll get to in a second, and see, oh, I could do this, or, oh, I'm not going to waste my time with this. So between about 3, sometimes 5 during audition week would be great. If you have an agent or representation, you'll have a scheduled audition time, which is really lovely. But you also need to go to auditions on your own as well. They don't do all work. As far as finding auditions, my favorite is Actors Access. And that is where you can self-submit on your own, submit your real headshot resume. And you can get an audition time for that. In order to see open calls, I love using Backstage, but I don't pay for a membership. Here's what you do. You go to the auditions calendar, and it just lists them all there, all the auditions per day. Then you go into Playbill, and you go into jobs. That's the down path. Go to Playbill, online, go into jobs, and you type in that audition, and it gives you where it is, what time, who's going to be there, all that stuff. The only thing I pay for is Actors Access.
That is the best thing I've heard.
Right? So, there's that.
Good. And what's your day job?
So my day job, I actually do a lot of coaching for my day job, and then I also work at the YMCA or that DC before COVID, working with their after-school arts program. Another thing that a lot of people do, and I think it's great, especially in New York, is working for like WAG or Moser.
Oh, yeah, those are fun.
Because those really allow you to truly set your own schedule. Like, okay, cool, I've got my 3 hours before this next audition. Cool, I'm going to go walk these 4 people's dogs and make a little money doing that. I think it's really important to, one thing that I always really try to encourage people is that when you do find that day job, make sure that you are still checking in with yourself why you're in New York. Don't let your day job become so enveloping that it takes over the reason why you're there, why you're trying to work and audition. So just make sure that when you do get up there, that you do have a day job that you're happy with.
Unless it becomes your new passion, then you decide.
It's very true, very true.
Happens many people.
In the last few minutes, I want to take a peek at something about cruises. I know the cruise industry is shut down for a little while. And I just heard they're postponing even further into the season. I hear a whimper from my cat back there who loves cruise. My daughter was on a cruise ship for a year. You've worked in cruise ships. Tell them a little bit about that, because that is another opportunity, which will be starting back up, and we'll need entertainers. So how do you do that?
So the cruise industry, specifically with where I work for, a lot of our shows are more pop rock review shows, but various cruises do various different types of things. I didn't know anything about the cruise industry prior to working with them, but it's so fascinating because some companies like Royal Caribbean, they have book shows, so they do, like Grease, Boy, Grease, Hairspray. And so they have these different opportunities. So I think a cruise job is honestly a wonderful opportunity to really try to kind of get your career started and moving along in the correct direction, especially like when you're right out of college, because they tend to pay very well. And as long as you're willing to kind of give up that chunk of, 8 to 10 months, depending on what comes. It can be a great opportunity for you to really get to hone your skills a little bit more. In particular, with a cruise industry job, we're really looking for like versatility. So you're not necessarily just doing a character show. You might also then do 3 other types of like song type shows. So it's a great industry I can hop into, and just kind of what I've seen on the inside scoop or whatever. I do personally think that we might see some cruise industry things maybe come back a little sooner than some Broadway stuff, only because if you've been on a ship, yes, you're all kind of enclosed in there, but they're crazy, strict. It's like, okay, we got to wipe everything down, everything.
And that was pre-COVID.
Yeah, that was pre-COVID. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so not only that, but they have the ability to take their computers, if they're like, oh, we got to get rid of 60% of the seats. Cool, they can just get rid of the 60% of the seats in the theater, and no big deal. So it is. I do think it is a lucrative industry for young performers to kind of jump into, for sure.
And stage management.
Yes,
Stage management, assistant stage management.
Bryce, who graduated from NKU, is actually, I believe he works for Celebrity Lighting.
Oh, yeah. All right, I think we're almost done, but anybody have one last question? Oh, no? Is there anything you'd like to say in your closing moments?
I just think that it's really hard right now to keep doing it, keep going, because New York is not the end all be all. LA isn't, Chicago isn't. This area that you're in here right now in Cincinnati has so many things to offer. And having a theater degree helps you tremendously in so many careers, so many other careers. And so just keep going and see what else you're passionate about too. That'll help you with your day job, that'll help you have an open mind. But yeah, just know that we'll get back. It'll be fine.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is theater has always bounced back, art has always bounced back. The world needs art and theater to kind of bring joy and happiness. We're always looking for that. So it will return. It has to, and trucking along with it.
Good. Get through it. You got it. All right. Well, thank you, Pat and Jacob. Thanks for you guys for being here.